So this is chapter 3 continued. It was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, that's the Guggenheim Museum, a famous American architect, and when it first opened, it made a lot of people very upset. This is because Frank Lloyd Wright didn't want to design an ordinary square building with ordinary walls and floors and ceilings. Instead, he wanted his museum to be an interesting shape. So instead of a square, it's round, with a round spiralling ramp inside it. I was interested when I read about that. I thought I would like to see a place so full of patterns. But when I thought about who I was going with, and I felt worried all over again. What Dad had meant about cat, but not said properly because grown-ups are bad at finishing sentences, was that this summer she was being mad, mean cat, approximately 97% of the time. She had failed her maths and science exams at the end of the year and almost failed history, which made Mum and Dad very unhappy. But it doesn't matter. I don't want to do any of them GCSE, Kath had said when she opened her envelope from school. I want to do art and design and media studies. Absolutely not, said Mum. You know you have to do maths. It's the law. And as for art, Kat, love, you have to be sensible. Your father and I want you to study practical subjects. There'll be time for art later. But Aunt Glow's not practical, said Kat, sticking out her chin and fiddling with her hair. She studied art, didn't she? I want to be like her. Your aunt's doing all right now, but she's struggled, Kat, said her mum, folding her arms. The worry I've had over her career, love. There were years when she couldn't pay her way and we had to help. I don't want that for you. It's just not fair, yelled Kat, and that was the beginning of the argument. Sometimes I don't understand people's emotions, but this time it was very easy. Everyone was angry. Our house was full of shouting and tears, which I imagined in my head as cold fronts and showers for weeks. Kat stayed out late in the park with her friends or came home on time but refused to leave her room for dinner. She also let her hair grow so that Dad said she looked like a shaggy sheepdog and cut it herself into a strange new shape that made Mum and Dad say, Kat, absolutely not. All right then, I'll get my belly button pierced, she said, and the hair was allowed to stay. Kat began to spend a lot of time on Dad's computer in the evenings, the green light on her face making the bones of her cheeks stand out. Apparently, Kat is beautiful, but I don't know how anyone knows that. To me, she just looks like Kat. The second time I caught her at the computer, she looked up and said, Buzz off, Ted. I'm emailing my friends from school. Actually, she didn't say buzz. She said something much more awful than that Mum would have whacked her for, but I'm translating. I had a hunch, a figure of speech that means deductive suspicion not being crouched over, that this behaviour was suspicious. I knew that the person Kat was emailing wasn't a friend from school. I knew this because Kat does not email her friends. She texts them. Her phone is always going off at the dinner table and making Dad say, Put it away, Kat. She would only email someone she couldn't text. And the one person she knew who it would be too expensive to text because he lived in the USA was Salim. What could Kat and Salim be emailing each other about? Then, on the 1st of August, Mum and Dad told Kat and me properly about us going with her to New York. Really? Squealed Kat, making my ears hurt. She went whirling up to Mum and Dad and hugged them both, and then she tried to hug me. This was an easy emotion to understand. Kat was happy about going to New York. Then she ran away to Dad's computer again and tapped away at it. Kat was emailing Salim, I thought. My deductions had been confirmed. And I was upset because even though Salim had been my friend too when he was in London, he had not emailed me at all, not once since I'd helped solve the mystery of his disappearance. Was this because he liked Kat better now? Were they becoming better friends through the words on their emails and leaving no room for me? Chapter 4. The Odyssey, Part 1. I thought about this more and more, and on the morning of our journey, Wednesday the 8th of August, I tried to talk to Mum about it, but she was too busy zipping shampoo bottles into plastic bags and saying, Make sure you pack your knickers, Kat. We'll be there for 8 days. Oh my, where is my good blouse? Mum, I said, I think Kat's doing something. Of course she is, Ted, said Mum. She's packing. Thank heavens, for once I know what she's doing. Have you got your things? I said carefully. I put my encyclopedia, my new alarm clock, my radio, my toothbrush and my 2 pairs of underwear into the suitcase Mum had laid out on the bed. On top I put my library copy of The Odyssey, which is the book about Odysseus' adventures. Mr. Shepherd at school gave it to me to read, and it seemed very suitable now that I was going on a long journey too. But Mum got very upset when she saw my suitcase. Ted, what about the rest of your clothes? She cried. I had to explain that I was going to wear my school uniform every day, like I always do. It'll be sweltering, Ted. You'll boil. And that radio won't work in Gloria's apartment in New York. American plugs are different. It's the electricity. Oh, Ted, love, don't look at it like that. My head had gone to the side. I was imagining New York air boiling me like a water in a pan, New York electricity frying the twisting circuits of my radio. What if I didn't work there any more than my radio did? And what if I couldn't cope without Dad there with me to help explain things to me when I didn't understand them? This would be my first time going anywhere away from home without Dad, only Mum and Kat. When we arrived at our gate at Heathrow Airport, I saw the aeroplane that was about to shoot us all the way across the ocean. I became even more worried. Odysseus's boats kept on sinking in his story. Sea travel is extremely dangerous, but I still thought I would prefer a boat to the plane we were going to travel in. It didn't look as though I should be able to get off it. It didn't look as though it should be able to get off the ground. I stepped backwards. Come on, Ted, shouted Kat, dancing away from us down the ramp that led to the plane. She was very excited. She wanted to get to New York and Salim. When the plane took off, it shook and rattled and shot upwards so fast that I felt as though my stomach had literally, and not metaphorically, been left behind. I covered my ears with my hands. The plane was a rattling tube, and I was shaking inside it. Look at the clouds, said Mum. It's all right, Ted. I opened my eyes and looked. The clouds were below me. They were cumulus congestus clouds, because it had been a warm, sunny day in London with a chance of rain. In Greek myths, which the Odyssey is part of, a god called Helios travels across the sky in a chariot with the sun, and that was how I was travelling, as fast and high as a god. But I was not sure that I felt like a god. I was still not sure that I was glad about this journey. The plane rocked and I groaned, but next to me, Kat bounced, just like the plane. At last, the aeroplane rattled us down through the clouds and into New York. New York's airport is called John F. Kennedy after the president who was shot, and thinking that thought made me feel uncomfortable. When we came to the arrivals hall, everything in it smelt like metal, and I didn't know where to look. Even though we were back on the ground, there was a bad feeling still lodged in my esophagus. Then Mum said, "There's Glo and Salim. Oh, Kat, Ted, look at them. Remember, look them in the eye, and if Auntie Glo wants to hug you, let her." I said. Then a woman came whirling towards us like a hurricane. That was the only way that I could be sure that she was Aunt Glo, because everything else about her was new. Her black hair was pulled up on top of her head in a new style, a little knot, and she was wearing a pale green dress the colour of mint ice cream. Her toenails and new sandals were painted shiny green too, which made me feel unwell. "Ted!" she shrieked, and I stepped back and looked up at the white beams of the ceiling. Then Kat let out a squeal and threw herself at a very tall boy with brown skin who was standing apart from Aunt Gloria. He still looked the same, and he was wearing a shirt I remembered him wearing in May. This was Salim. He grinned at me and held out his hand. "Ted, the theoretical joker," he said. This made me happy because Salim had called me this last spring. He had remembered. "Hello, Salim," I said politely. Salim opened his mouth to say something more to me, but then Kat grabbed hold of his arm and pulled him round to her. I could tell Kat was happy to be near him, and Salim was happy to be near her. They were so happy that they were both now ignoring me, and noticing that made me feel as lost and far away from them as the white beams on the airport ceiling.